It's really interesting when you hear stories of patients that describe massive pain that comes on without any physical injury or event. The pain's real and it's as painful as if something traumatic has happened, but they should be telling you for this much pain to come from nothing. They should be saying I fell down the stairs, I had a car crash, I had an immediate traumatic event. But quite often there isn't a physical event of that magnitude to warrant that amount of pain. So they've got so much pain, and yet actually they're just saying I woke up with it. It just came on. And with that, there's often a desire to find a belief that fits that. And that's where the cultural beliefs of, I slipped my disc, I trapped a nerve, I pulled a muscle, something that maybe fits that level of pain. And it doesn't really stack up though, that doesn't really fit, because you'd have to have trauma to cause some of those physical injuries to they're sometimes described in that way. Some of these things don't even exist, but they're just beliefs as to why pain can be that bad. So if there hasn't been that much trauma, but there's that much physical pain, there's a good chance that there's a tipping point being reached for that person. A physical tipping point, an emotional tipping point, a psychological tipping point, something that's happened that's brought them to the point where the system goes into shutdown, it triggers the pain to do it. So if somebody has pushed themselves too hard at work, if they pushed themselves too hard in an emotional situation, if they're psychologically overloaded, if their stress response is just pushed, then the system cannot allow you to stay in that state. It's simply measuring the amount of cortisol, adrenaline in the system, the physical tissues responses on them, and there'll be a point at which it shuts the person down. Now, without physical trauma, that's when the event happens so fast the person can do anything about it. They would recall that event, but when there is no event and then there's massive pain, it means that the threshold's been reached, but it's been tiptoed to. It's just kept on building up upon. There'll be lots of warnings before it, but because the person's focused on doing the thing they want to do, because they feel they have to, or they're stuck in that situation, or feel obliged to, or actually love doing, or it's their down button, but they need a high level of stress as a down button. But if they're using a high level of stress down button to get away from a high level of stress, then the system's just going upwards. And once you hit that threshold of overload, the brain has the ability to trigger pain. It's a danger alarm mechanism. It'll trigger physical pain in the context that switches the person out of the activity that they do overdoing, and they will feel that experience. So when there's been no physical trauma and pain is huge, that's another cue that your brain's using pain to protect you. The more you get the idea that the brain drives pain, the more they get the idea it's your body telling you that it wants you to stop or slow down or take you out of a situation, the less fear you have about that pain itself. You've still got to do the physical things to look after that area of your body, but once the fear drops, it's in a much easier process to then reverse that pattern of behaviour that creates that pain.